Good evening, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting of July 11, 2013. We have a varied agenda this evening and quite a few different items. The first item on the agenda is the reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. And before we get into that, I would like to welcome Robin Hunter, the Selectman-elect. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you.
Now, each year at this time, as tradition calls, the third-year selectman becomes the chairman. That is different this year because of Mr. Melican stepping down and Robin taking his position. So what I propose for the next 6 months that I continue as chairman, and after that 6-month role, Carol, I would like you to become chairman at that point, because I know the year after that will be a third year, so we'll have continuity over the next 2 years while Robin gets her feet wet, so to speak.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
That's a good suggestion.
Robin?
Good suggestion.
Okay. Now, with that, would you like to make the motion? I don't want to
So, I move we appoint Jim Dolly as Chair of the Board of Selectmen for July 1st through June 30th. Well, let's see, actually it goes
July 1st,
December 30th. I'm just thinking, yeah. And then, well, until through December.
Yes.
And then I move that I will become chair starting January 1st.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. And additionally, Carol, you'll be the clerk from now through the end of December.
Okay.
Okay. And you'll be, your title is member.
Okay.
Is that correct, from the next year? Good. Do I hear a second on that motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Greg, I hope you got that.
I think so. I'll check the tape after.
Oh, yes, please, the tradition.
The tradition.
The clerk and the member switch ends. Thank you.
And the assistant town administrator typically sings the tune.
It's a snappy
And does
tone.
the dance.
And does her dance.
Very good, thank you. Thank you, Carol.
Carol, do you want your name, please?
Oh,
here
very
we go.
nice.
Thank you.
Okay. On to the next agenda item, which is very dear to the whole community, actually. And it's a resolution in recognition of retiring fire engineer Pete Sherman. Pete, welcome this evening. If you would, I would like to read the resolution. Dated July 11, 2013. Town of Dover, a resolution. Whereas Carlton Pete Sherman, on June 30th, 2013, completed more than 70 years of service to the Dover Fire Department, starting as a firefighter in 1943 at the age of 15. And whereas during his career, Mr. Sherman was involved in many areas of fire operations, including lieutenant, fire inspector, deputy fire chief, and fire chief, retiring on March 1st, 1993. And whereas, upon his retirement as fire chief, he was appointed by the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Fire Engineers. And whereas, during both his career with the fire department as fire engineer, Mr. Sherman acted as a leader in the department, respected by all who have known and worked with him. And whereas, his sincere commitment and dedication in the performance of these duties touched the lives of all Dover citizens, making the town a safe community in which to live, and representing the town of Dover throughout the fire enforcement community as a public voice and face. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen publicly recognizes, commends, and extends our deep gratitude to Mr. Sherman for his extraordinary service, dedication, and devotion to the fire department in the town of Dover. Signed by the 3 selectmen on July 11, 2013. Pete, thank you very much. Now, Carol, would you like to say anything?
I had the honor of being at the Board of Fire Engineers meeting in June, when they spent quite a bit of time singing your praises and all that you've done for the town. And you regaled us all with incredible stories about your 70 years. Could have gone on for hours. And one of the amazing things, and I think it's mentioned here, that you started as a firefighter at the age of 15. And I remember asking, age of 15, and it was 1943, and it was during World War II. So all the men were at war, and the teenagers had to step up and provide a service to the town, which you started to do then. And it was fascinating. I know that you've been a mentor to every volunteer fireman that has gone through for the last 70 years. You were a mentor to Dave Tiberi and Jay Hughes, and your involvement in other aspects of the town is too. I know you were on the Board of Appeals for a while, has just been amazing. And I don't know whether the town of Dover, as it becomes more suburban and less rural, will ever have the opportunity again to have somebody who can spend 70 years here dedicated to Dover. But thank you very, very much.
You're quite welcome. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Perhaps my wife should be the one deserving the honor. She's put up with me for all these years. In 62 years, she's put up with my being on committees and the fire department, of course, and being busy all the time. And she's stood by me, and only once was I afraid of, a little bit afraid that I might be in trouble because I was summoned to the Board of Selectmen by radio when I was on the way to what was then the dump, now the transfer station, that the selectmen wanted to see me right away. So I finished my trip to the dump and came in, and they sat here like you three, I said, "Man." And they said, "We have a proposition for you." I said, "What's that?" They said, "We'd like you to run for selectman." I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but I have to refuse. And I have two reasons. One, there's a little bit of turmoil going on in the fire department right now, and I think I do more good there. But secondly, if I took the position of selectman, my wife would leave me." and I meant that sincerely.
Well, as I said when I saw you here this evening, today I was driving through Dover, heading towards Needham, and I was behind our brand new ladder truck. And you know, if ever there is a concrete symbol of the professionalism and what you've done over your years to bring this fire department to the level that it is, it's this brand new ladder truck.
That, I will say, they did a marvelous job of supervising that and getting everything on it that is necessary. It is so automatic, it almost scares you. The outriggers, the turntable, the ladder, and the play pipe can be run by remote from the ground. You don't have to put a man in danger above the fire with the play pipe. They can handle it right from the ground with the remote. It's just electronic, fascinating to me. I'm sure that it would take some time to get used to it, but certainly it's a far cry from what they're getting rid of.
Well, I think it'll be a while for all of us to get used to seeing this incredible vehicle on the streets of Dover.
It is.
As I watched it make its turn onto Cross Street, I was going, is it going to make it?
It's really huge. It's
It's huge.
Sometime when they're working with it, try and see them when they've got it out working with it. They had it down the road down here the other day. I don't know what they were doing, but they had the ladder extended. They had the road shut off for a few minutes while they were working with it. Well, I think it was a demonstration of some kind. I don't know. I had a feeling that it might have been for some of the highway people because the highway trucks were parked there too. So.
Oh, maybe it was Big Truck Day the other day for the kids. Yeah.
Where is the actual resolution?
It's-
Okay.
Yes, I will get that to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you for coming in.
Well, it's been a love.
Thank you.
My wife says it was my first love. She said she was second. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Next, agenda item is appointments. And we have 3 or 4 groups, or departments, with appointments tonight. Carol, I believe you have 2.
Yep.
Actually 3 to start.
Okay, so the first is coincidentally Board of Fire Engineers. We had appointed Peter Smith to fill Pete's position at our last meeting, but John Sudgeon was also due to be reappointed. So I move that we appoint John for 3 years to the Board of Fire Engineers, and he will be chair.
I'll second that. Any discussion? None? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
On the Conservation Commission, Larry Clausen is currently an associate member. It's a 1-year term, and he has agreed to be reappointed as an associate member, so I move we appoint Lawrence Clausen for another 1-year term as associate member.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Good.
And, let's see, it's gonna be open space.
Yep.
So, Amy Moot has agreed to a 3rd term, so I move we appoint Amy for a 3-year term to the Open Space Committee.
I'll second. Oh, thank you, Robin. Robin, second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And she will be chair.
So,
Then still on open space, Nancy Doherty, who was filling in for the unexpired term of Andy Thompson, will not be re-upping. So we will have an open spot for Nancy. And Justine Kent-Urtam, who has been on the Open Space Committee for 13 years, has agreed to another 3-year term, so I move we appoint Justine for another 3-year term.
13 years.
Second that.
All in favor? Aye. Good.
I think that's it.
Yeah, you have a few other ones on there.
Those are liaisons.
Oh, Concom,
Yeah,
yep, thank
so-
you. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, those are your 3. Have you been doing your homework? Have you, nothing to report this evening?
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I do have one, and that is the Cultural Council. I should say one department. Now, this particular, we're adding 2 more people to that council?
You can have up to a certain number that's quite long, not
Okay.
like this, but they're well under that
Good,
next
okay.
number.
And I see who we're replacing is Erin Gordon, Jane Johnstone, and Rose Mahoney. And the following individuals submitted their names for appointment. John Sheehan of 102 Claybrook Road, Patricia Marks Martonovich, I hope I didn't ruin that name, 2 Buttercup Lane, Kristen Barofi, 35 Center Street, Linda Holliner, 40 Donley Drive, Kerry Muse, 26 Knollwood Drive, Amy Lamb, I just have a P.O. Box 32, in Irina Gorbman, 12 Abbott Road. So what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. So we're adding 4 new members in addition to the 3 expiring terms on the Dover Cultural Council. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that's the extent of my appointments this evening. Robin didn't have any. Carol, you're already through. And this process continues for the next few meetings. It's very important. Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Was the board going to make an appointment to the
Yes, thank you.
school collective bargaining?
Corrected. The Dover Sherburne Regional School Committee is putting, or has a collective bargaining negotiating team for the upcoming contract. And I would like to nominate Carol Lisbon as the Dover Selectmen appointee to that particular negotiating team. Do I hear a second? Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank
Let
you.
this-
Let me just give a quick update. 3 years ago, during the last negotiation of the union contract that handles all the staff for Chickering School in Dover, the middle school and high school at the region, and Pine Hill and Sherburne, the school committee members elected to have a representative selectman from Dover and Sherburne. It was the first time that selectmen had been included. And they voted to do that again this year, and I would like to publicly thank them for doing that. The schools represent a huge percentage of both Dover's budget and Sherburne's budget, and I think having selectmen there to sort of look at things from an overview standpoint has been beneficial, and I appreciate the willingness of the Dover School Committee, the Regional School Committee, and the Sherburne School Committee to invite a selectman from each town to join the negotiating team again. So thank you very much for that. We have 8 meetings scheduled in July and August at 7 a.m. As we work to put together our list of issues and do the financial analysis that needs to be done in preparation for the negotiations, which start in the fall, and we have 6 full days, Saturdays, scheduled in September, October, November at this point to do that. That's sort of the schedule we had 3 years ago, too. And all these sessions will be as an executive session, as most contract negotiations are. So there won't be much discussed, or almost anything discussed from now on. But it was a wonderful process last time. We used interest-based bargaining. The Dover Sherburne Educational Association, the union, is a wonderful group as well. So I'm hoping that we'll have as good a process this year as we had 3 years ago.
Good, thank you. And thank you for volunteering for that. Okay.
Military volunteer.
The next item on the agenda is discussing the 2 Chapter 61A rights of first refusal. And this, I believe, will be the 3rd Board of Selectmen meeting this has been discussed. There's a parcel on Pagan Lane and a parcel on Dedham Street. And to summarize briefly, when the 61A property, which is not a tax exemption, but a tax reduction because of agricultural, I believe it is, when they're put on the market for sale, accordingly, the town has first right of refusal on that and has 120 days to respond. And we're probably toward the 60 or 70% mark on that number of days. And I know a few groups looking at it, and Carol, you know a little more than I do on this one.
So as Jim said, this is a law that we follow to do this. The policy and the process that we use in Dover is really to work with the organizations and committees that are associated with the preservation of open space. So when we get these types of requests from the proposed seller, we bring it out to the Open Space Committee, to Concom, and to Dover Land Conservation Trust. And they work together as a team to look at the property, see if there's any value to it from an open space standpoint, from a wetlands protection standpoint, and so forth. And they will then work with abutters and other interested parties in Dover who might be interested in participating in the funding of a purchase. And right now, the Dover Land Conservation Trust and Concom are very much involved. They have offered funds that are available to them towards the purchase. There's a ways to go, and the Dover Land Conservation Trust is working with abutters to see if they can find some additional funds to meet the purchase price. And they have requested that we give them a little bit more time, understanding that we're coming up to the 120 days for both properties, I think in the end of August. So that's what I would recommend that we do.
Okay. And Dave, to that end, can we get town council involved to the point of, okay, what does the selectman have to do at day 120, or is it Friday, day 120, or things of that nature?
Certainly.
Good. I will second the motion to continue this. And
How much more time are we looking?
well, we're restricted by the 120 days from the notice to the town on each one.
Right, and Tom French, who's president of the Dover Land Conservation Trust and has taken the lead on this at this point, is aware of those dates.
Okay.
So he requested this a little bit more time, but he's totally aware. And I'll let him know that our next meeting is, I think it's August 22nd. Or August 22nd, right,
22nd.
yeah. So that should be okay for the 120 days. The Conservation Commission has offered funds from their land acquisition fund, which the town used to fund on a regular basis through town meeting, which stopped a while ago. And the Dover Land Conservation Trust has also offered funds, but again, it's not enough. So they're working the issue, and Tom will let us know one or the other shortly.
Okay, because our next meeting is probably a week before the... Approximately.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's important to figure out what we're supposed to do prior to the, or on the 120th day. Okay, good. Thank you, Carol. Okay, we're moving along. And next item on the agenda is, I believe, our second review of the gifts and grants acceptance policy that Mr. Ramsey, I believe you and the town treasurer first drafted. Robin, have you had a chance to look at this? I know it's been a hectic couple weeks there.
I actually have had a chance to look at it, and I would like to propose potentially making one edit to the, to paragraph BI of the gift policy. I think we should use the term, perhaps, that we strongly advise committees and departments to seek counsel from the selectmen. I understand ultimately it's our decision, but I think it would be very helpful for all committees to be able to come to us so that we can talk about it prior to us approving the gift or the grant.
That's an excellent point. And to clarify, we have the ability to authorize the expenditure, so we can strongly advise them to come in on whether they should accept the grant or the gift. Okay, good. Carol?
I think that will help a lot. I have a couple of other little things as well. On the first page, under what's A2 and A3, but actually it's A3 where I think the punctuation is confusing. So on A3, it says, "The Board of Trustees of the Dover Public Library is authorized to accept gifts and grants of money for library purposes and for purposes of library construction or renovations, and of tangible property, personal property, as a matter of town policy." I believe the town policy relates to the tangible personal property, not the first two. So I just find that a little confusing. So whether it's putting a semicolon after section 19K, maybe that would do it?
Yep.
To take away the matter of town policy being a phrase that addresses the first two as well.
So after the parentheses?
Yeah.
and parentheses.
Right. I think a semicolon would make that its own statement of,
Okay.
and I would do the same up in A2.
After section
After
37A?
37A, right.
Yeah, okay. Good.
And on C7, so that's a new phrase that I had mentioned to Dave when we chatted a week or two ago after our last meeting. those are just three particular topics. It says where there may be non-financial impacts of the gift or grant, such as land use related, environmental, traffic related. Those just were three that came to mind for me, given the recent experience we had with Sea Park and the issues of private funds. But if there are other examples that the two of you think can help the boards and committees understand our intent, then, please feel free to add them on. I mean, ambiance is sort of a general thing, but I don't know,
Right. No, as I read that, I agree with that. So- Okay.
And also, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Also, because I don't want folks years from now, after things have calmed down and many of us have gone on, not to understand where we're coming from in this, that we say whether there be non-financial impacts of the grant or grants, such as, but not limited to.
That's a good addition.
Right.
But not limited to.
But not limited to.
But not limited to. Okay, good.
And my understanding, Dave, is that you're going to create a form
Yes.
that will be available for anybody, that will include a sort of a checklist as well as the requirement of a narrative.
If the form's completed, it will satisfy all the elements of the policy.
And can you provide a list of all the boards and committees for which this is applicable? Oh, do?
Yes. It was on
Oh,
the
okay,
first version
okay.
2 meetings ago.
Well, that's,
That's the inventory of existing grants and
Okay,
gifts.
so every-
Our intention is to send it
okay.
to
great,
everybody.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
My other suggestion would be to attach the form as an exhibit to the policy, so.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay, so by August 22nd, I believe, our next meeting, the form will be created. We'll incorporate the changes. We'll, if everything's happy, we'll figure it out next meeting, and at that point, we'll discuss sending it to townwide for review and opinion. Review, God, correct me on that. Comment. Yeah,
If you want to do that, otherwise you can simply finalize it and distribute it.
okay. Thank you, so we'll fund it, we'll table this till the next meeting. Thank you. Next agenda item is the Conservation Commission Gift Fund expenditure. And Dave, you going to speak to this?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. At the last minute, an invoice surfaced from a vendor, a wetlands consultant, that the Conservation Commission had used some months ago. It surfaced, I think it might have even been Monday, and it was really late for it to get any other consideration, namely through the reserve fund. So we looked at a Conservation Commission gift fund that had a balance of somewhere around $150 in it. We looked into the history of that, and it's unrestricted. So in pursuant to the pending policy that you have, the Conservation Commission authorized the expenditure of $125 from that gift fund, but now that we are aware of the law, the selectmen have to approve it as well.
Okay. Thank you. In Concom voted this in last evening?
Last night, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I move we approve the expenditure from the Conservation Commission gift fund of $125.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is a proposed farmer's market at the Grace Chapel. Greer, would you like to speak to this, or Dave?
Greer's been working.
We have received from the Reverend Santo the plan to establish a farmer's market in September at the Grace Church location. And this would be on a trial basis. They'd like to hold it Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the vendors, the farmers would come and set up their produce stands out on the back grassy lawn area. They asked us to come over so we could review some of the details and look at the site and so forth. So town representatives from police department, the police chief, the town planner, the building inspector, myself and Dave went over there and walked the site with them. And after we had spoken with Amy DeSanto, we put together a memo, and the chief has prepared it, which itemizes some of the recommended things that should be done, that we would recommend the board consider asking the farmers market to do with regard to parking, no on-street parking, that they mark up the parking lot out in the back and have volunteers to assist with that, and that the market managers, the DeSantoses, would comply with all of the state and local Board of Health regulations and permitting requirements. And he also is requesting that they review this with him and the town after the market has been running for some short period of time, to see if there are any other requirements that the selectmen would like to recommend, any changes depending on traffic. But we're not sure, how many vendors there will be. They've agreed to limit it to 12 at this time, and they're not sure, what the participation will be, but they have a sense that it should be pretty good for Dover Sherburne residents, and it's a good opportunity for community members to come together and buy some vegetables and say hi to each other.
I have a couple of questions. You mentioned that it falls under the purview of the Board of Health. Have they been asked their opinion?
Yes, yeah. After we had our site visit, I went down and I spoke with the health agent, and he said that, yes, he would like to sit down and get some more information, depending on what it is that they're intending to sell. There might be various kinds of permits that they would be required to obtain, and also provisions for facilities made available to the public and so forth. And I spoke with Amy DeSanto, and she's agreed to sit down with them and review what it is that will be sold and line up the proper permits.
My next question goes to the timing on a Saturday morning, 9 a.m. That's when it's open to the public. When do vendors set up? Is there a, they set up not 6 a.m.
We didn't discuss that, yeah, we didn't
I think
discuss that.
that might be important to the neighbors.
Mhm.
And have the neighbors been talked to regarding this?
They approached the town first. I do not believe they've spoken to neighbors, although when we pointed to the house that abutted the church in that back grassy area and asked whose house is that, it was the DeSantos's. And on the other side is woods. So there's actually, there is on both sides a buffer between where the farmers market would be placed and any houses.
I can appreciate the immediate abutters, but generally speaking, because the setup of 12 vendors at 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever the case may be, might be of a concern. So just general conversation.
Okay.
I would like to know if the abutters have been talked to, what time is set up. And don't get me wrong, I support this type of activity, but let's be very open on when things are going to be moving around on Center Street on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, I'm very concerned. I mean, it's one of these things, it's a great idea, the devil's in the details. I'm very concerned about the parking situation because, as we know, when they so graciously host the COA volunteer lunch,
Yes.
it's overflow parking, and you end up blocking the exit. So I know it says in here that you have to have the entrance and the exit, so that in and out,
Yes.
unblocked. But then you add to it, because it's not a big parking area to begin with, and you add to it a access and egress for emergency vehicles, 18-foot to 24 lane recommended, and that cuts down on parking even more, especially in the back and the far side, the south side. So they're actually going to end up being very few parking spots available on the church property.
I believe they said that without, you know, altogether there are 50?
50 to 60, we
Parking
think.
spots. There may be less if the
Doesn't have
vendors
to.
choose to park their trucks up against the building instead of out on the lawn
They don't have
beside
that
their
choice.
tables
The regulations require the truck to be with the
with the.
distribution area.
But there's parking on the side that's going to be eliminated if you're going to leave 18 feet for the fire truck.
But they said in spite of that, there's 50 to 60 spaces there, and the chief concurred.
Really? Okay.
And they are also recommending that the lot be lined so that we maximize the way that people park. You know, put some sort of
Okay.
spray paint down or something.
Yeah, it's a gravel lot, I believe.
It won't last, but it'll be there.
For-
Okay.
Right, so I know that they're going to be talking to the Catholic Church about overflow parking,
Yes, they are.
so we could make our approval contingent upon verification of that.
I know the chief has looked at this, but there are also some concerns regarding traffic, because during the same time period on Saturday mornings in the fall, there's sporting events on the Chickering fields.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how much additional traffic and, you know, whether people just come in on Dedham Street or come in on Central Ave and then go down Cross Street to get to those fields on Dedham Ave.
So we would want to have a police presence then, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it should be something, you know, I concur with the chief's recommendation to revisit this after a couple of the farmers markets have occurred. And that's one of the things, you know, we should be monitoring the increased traffic flow on Saturday mornings.
The police chief intends to do that, yeah.
Okay. Our ability to stop this is limited, but other than safety factors and that nature, I take it.
Yeah, public safety, health.
So it's not so much approval, I believe, is required? I don't know, Dave?
Well, they're asking for, as a
Oh,
courtesy, they're
oh,
asking
courtesy
for
approval,
approval
right.
when bike rides come through town.
So I'm uncomfortable without knowing setup times and whether the Board of Health have blessed this. And I don't want to delay this if in fact everything's fine. But we don't meet until August 22nd.
Right, and their intention was, if the board gave its informal approval this evening, they would move ahead and start soliciting farmers and lining it up, because they hope to start this in September.
So could we make our approval, quote unquote, conditional upon a couple of things we've just talked about? Board of
I'd
Health
be happy with
approval
that.
and police presence and talking to the neighbors and
Set up
set up
time.
time that's after 7 a.m., which I think is when construction can start on
Yeah,
a Saturday.
landscape.
You know, exactly, if it's good enough for a lawnmower, right. In addition to all the other things that are listed here in Chief McGowan's letter.
Okay, I'm comfortable with the conditional courtesy approval.
I am too.
Just a quick question on this.
Are you representing the church,
No,
Jerry?
just a citizen's question about what you just said.
We have the citizens' comments at the back of the agenda, and I'd love to hear them. But given that we don't know enough about this and we have questions, I'm uncomfortable even addressing a question
No,
right
I just
now.
had a question of the words you used.
Okay.
So anyway, so I'd like to make a contingent upon firm overflow parking and agreement to do the appropriate signage for direction of that.
Yes, good.
A police presence, which is not only has to be there to monitor to see how it's going to go, but if there's overflow parking, there are going to be pedestrians crossing the street.
Now, police presence, the chief is not recommending or suggesting a police detail. As a matter of fact here, he's saying if it becomes necessary in an overflow situation. If there's not an overflow situation, is a police presence that is not a police detail satisfactory?
Does that tax the shift that morning if that gentleman has to sit there, the police officer has to sit there for 4 hours? Yeah, 4 hours. Well, that
My
tax.
My understanding is the chief intends to be at the first one.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll defer that to the chief then.
Yep.
Okay, that's a good one, though. Police presence signage,
Contingent on the Board of Health.
Board of Health.
And I understand there've been discussions on that this is envisioned to be a farmer's market, not a flea market.
That's
So there'll be
correct.
some vetting of vendors to ensure that it's of that ilk versus...
Yes, they're going to be reaching out to farmers. Yes.
Okay.
And we can make that decision.
Okay.
That's a good point, because the farmer's market's an excellent idea. A flea market is not.
Okay.
Okay, and the last one, did you say the setup time yet? Is that in there too,
No,
Graham?
that's the one we omitted.
Okay,
And you had mentioned outreach to neighbors.
yes, neighborhood
Yeah.
input, yeah. Okay, good. Carol, would you like to make that,
I make a motion that we give contingent approval to this with the specific item contingencies as just discussed and delineated.
Second.
And request that we have an update at our August 22nd meeting.
excellent. Robin, second that. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. The next item on the agenda are 3 license agreements for the Carroll Community Center. Mr. Ramsey, please.
Mr. Dolly, if I may defer to
Greer, excellent.
Sure. The 3 remaining license agreements that expired on June 30th are ready for your signature this evening if you approve them. One is for the Center for the Development of Children. They have agreed to a 3.5% increase over their fiscal year 13 monthly rent. So that would be roughly $5,500 per month. All of the provisions in the agreement are the same. The parent clock Incorporated has agreed to a 5% increase in their monthly rent, and bringing that monthly rent to approximately $2,400. And over at Whiting Road, Federal Auto agreed to sign license agreement for fiscal year 14 with no increase. So his rent would be $400 per month.
Aside from Dover Automotive, bring me up to speed. It's my recollection that you're trying to get everyone along the same lines of rental per square foot numbers. Is that why there are different increases?
It's a target, but everybody started at different prices.
Right, I know it's incremental.
So we're doing our best to negotiate the best rates for each in that direction.
That's the goal,
So
though.
move it-
Right, thank you.
move it in that
Right, good, thank you.
Yes.
And I understand that the CDC is actually going to be doing some significant capital improvements.
We're hoping
On their
to
dime?
replace 1 or 2 of the floors in their wing.
Really?
Yeah.
Since it's a town-owned building, do we have to approve that?
We would have to approve that.
Okay.
So Carl's working on that, right? Carl Warnick?
Okay, so that's not gonna
At a
happen very
cost-
soon?
Well, I heard they wanted to get it done before the school year. Is that,
Well, it's in the tentative stages right now. They're looking at enrollments for the fall. But that's part of their plan.
Okay, what was the other thing? Besides replacing the floor?
that was it?
Oh, okay,
Okay.
good. Is Parent Talk doing anything?
They've buffed up their space really nicely over the last few years.
Very good. Okay, and I know Doug has this nice little business down there, and he utilizes a building that probably doesn't have a lot of other value than Doug utilizing it to put cars. I'll entertain a motion, Robin, if you'd like. the 3 licenses?
I would like to recommend that we accept the 3 licenses for 2 for the Carroll Community Center and 1 for 5 Whiting Road at the increases proposed by our discussion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. You're jumping right in.
I agree, you'll get us that spreadsheet up,
Yes.
let's spread these around.
I don't know.
Oh, wait,
I mean,
there's just,
just me on
just Jim?
that one.
I think
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
just-
you.
Oh, you get them all.
Yeah, you're all you.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm lucky.
It's only 1 signature.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Probably what you'll learn is sign your name very quickly. 'Cause we
Greer
have-
already complimented me on how quick my
She does
signature is.
We have
She
22,
types as quickly as any board member does.
the special licenses will drain your pen.
Question is it legible?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Next agenda item is the Dover Sherburne Regional School Athletic Fields Site Plan Review. Now, from what I'm told, they're on to Phase 2, and I know they have or will be appearing before the planning board. And the selectmen's role in this particular issue is, whereas the regional school committee, athletic field group, goes before the planning board, and then they advise the selectmen on whether to approve the site plan review. To that extent, we were just given a memorandum from the planning board consultant this evening, and I would like to extend this to or table this to our next meeting, because there are some things in here I would like to see, whether it's the plan, whether it's talk to the planning board, see their minutes, but I would like to table this particular matter until the next meeting.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move along. This evening, we will appoint a backup building inspector. And Greer, this is your evening, Greer. Thank you.
As you know, we appointed a new building inspector within the last fiscal year, and he was formerly the deputy building inspector, and we have not filled the deputy's position since his appointment to the inspector position, and he does have vacation time, 3 weeks a year. He is asking that we appoint a backup building inspector to perform only field inspections in his absence. That would be for approximately 60 hours total a year while he is on vacation.
Okay. This gentleman, does he come referenced, or?
We would ask that you vote this contingent upon our checking his references, although I must say he's a retired full-time professional building inspector out of Waltham, and he's currently employed on a part-time basis for the town of Weston, so he's very, very well qualified. But for prudence sake, yes, we would want the vote to be contingent upon checking his references.
Okay, thank you.
So would he be an employee of the town?
Yes, he would.
Okay, with that contingency, I will make the motion to Appoint Robert J. Como as the backup building inspector, again, with the contingency that all the references are satisfactory. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, thank you.
May I suggest we take this application and give them all to Greer since they have a
Yes.
social security number on them?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lisbon.
Thank you, Carol. Okay. Our next agenda item is our fall, winter, spring meeting schedule. And while mundane on the surface, it's something that we have to do. Okay. This is 2:13. So we'll set it through December 31st this evening, is that the intent?
Typically, you set the whole year fall.
I don't have the,
We don't have
I don't have the
calendar.
14th, that's why I asked that question.
Okay, through December then.
Okay, excellent answer.
Okay, so we have one August 22nd, right? That's our,
Yes.
Yeah.
Then when we get into September, it's back to the every other week. Right. So the first Thursday in September would be Thursday, September 5th.
which is Rosh Hashanah.
Okay, we'll not do that. Now, would you be opposed to any time during that week, or you want to just
No,
go to
that's,
next week?
no, on the following Thursday, I can't do it, so, let's see, when does, Rosh Hashanah begins Wednesday night, so
So that's out then,
we would have to do it Tuesday night,
either that or Wednesday the 11th.
or Wednesday the 11th.
So I have my calendar memorized. You guys have to rely on these electronic,
What's in here?
nothing much recently. You can put that on the table. No one thinks you're cheating by looking at it.
I'm looking at it, it's on the tape. So September 11th,
Robin?
Wednesday the 11th?
That
Good,
works for
Wednesday.
me.
Wednesday, September 11th?
And they all commence at 6:30?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. If we roll along a couple of weeks, then we're into Thursday, September 26th.
It's okay with me.
Hold on 1 second. So the 27th,
26th, Thursday, September 26th.
that works for me.
Good. Thursday, October 10th.
It's my wedding anniversary.
Oh, your husband won't care.
I'm available that night.
I'm teasing, obviously. Some of my humor isn't appreciated.
The 10th?
No, Robin, I'll defer to you on that, obviously.
I would prefer that we don't.
That's quite fine. So Wednesday, the 9th might be,
I can't do that.
okay?
How about Tuesday, the 8th?
Tuesday, the 8th,
Yep.
good. So Tuesday, October 8th. Then the next Thursday in a cycle would be Thursday, October 24th.
That's okay.
That's okay for me too.
Good, thank you. November 7th.
Can't do it.
Okay, Wednesday, the 6th. This time of year gets obviously very busy, so
Yeah, that's
I don't
okay.
want to skip a week.
Yeah, that works for me.
November 6th, Wednesday, November 6th? Thank you. When is Thanksgiving this year? 21st or the 28th?
The week before Thanksgiving is the 27th.
So the 21st, we can,
We could do the
28th.
21st.
okay, so Thursday, November 21st?
Okay.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Thursday, December 5th.
So now again, that's my birthday.
And I can't make it either.
Okay, all right. Okay. Wednesday, the 4th?
That works.
Thank you. Then, as we get closer to the holidays, December 19th.
That's okay.
It should work.
Good. Okay. Very good. Then in August, August 22nd, we'll figure out 2014.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greer. That's it. Other business, special licenses. There are 14 this evening, and I'll read them as best I can. The first one on July 13th at Elm Bank, a wedding. The second one at the Boston College Connor Center on August 1st. The third, Boston College Connor Center, August 3rd. Again at the BC Connor Center, August 8th. BC Connor Center, August 9th. BC Connor Center, August 13th. Again, August 14th, same facility. Same facility, August 20th. BC Connor Center, August 21st. Connor Center, August 23rd. Connor Center, August 24th. Again on the 29th of August. And then continuing September 8th at the Connor Center. September 21st at the Connor Center, a wedding. And I think that's the 14, which we have to sign now, so bear with us, please.
So I move we approve the 14 requests.
Do I hear a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Pardon?
You sign on the third line.
Okay, I need a
Oh,
pen.
you need a pen, okay. You graduate to the second line tonight.
I get a raise too, don't I?
You know, that's, yeah, I think you do.
Buy a cup of coffee.
Depends where you get the coffee.
Yeah, right.
Is it for you? That's your signature?
It is.
Oh, my goodness. That's worse than Jim's.
Yes. Thank you, Carol.
Comes from yours of having to sign checks.
Oh, I understand that. That's more of an initial process.
Well, it can be anyone.
Yeah.
Oh, it is, and it always looks like that.
Okay, let's see. That needs it. That's for-
Fast and efficient.
No, I get it. That's the last one for you. Those are done. Thank you. Under other business, next item on the agenda is reserve fund transfer, maturing debt principal. Mr. Ramsey.
As you recall, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, last fall, you authorized what's called an advanced refunding of some of our debt. The result of that was a savings over the life of the term of the bonds of about $1 million. A short-term cash flow problem of $24,999 in the debt principal budget. This was prior noticed a long time ago, and then frankly, I forgot to submit the reserve fund transfer, so that's what this is.
Okay, yeah, I remember from February, I believe, was the prior notice, and we talked about that. Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the request for reserve fund transfer in the amount of $24,999.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The second reserve fund transfer is the Conservation Commission. Mr. Ramsey?
Mr. Chairman, this was an overage in the Conservation Commission budget caused by the use of wetlands consultants to review a couple of rather significant land use project proposals and to assist the Conservation Commission in revising its wetlands regulations.
And this is for fiscal
13.
13. No prior notice of this one, huh?
I think it's with 40Bs that the developer reimburses the town for a lot of their...
We can require review fees for 40Bs.
Right, but Concom does not, okay.
Okay, so any other questions on this? Robin, do you?
No. In total, and if we don't know the answer now, I'm just curious, how much of the reserve fund was utilized in the past fiscal year?
I think we had a balance after everything of about 80. We started with 250, so about a 170 has been actually committed.
Can we get an updated
Certainly.
final version, because this should be hopefully the last one,
Right.
I imagine it is, of the schedule of the transfers.
Yep.
Thank you. With that, I'll make a motion to approve the reserve fund transfer conservation in the amount of $5,400. Do I hear a second?
Aye.
Thank you. Rick, I just one piece of paper on that one, and I signed one, just had 3 copies in it or something.
Because that's what I was given from conservation. The copy is their own, I'll just make a copy of the accountant's
Okay, I was just curious.
original statement.
So they won't have my signature down in their file?
This is really the one that's necessary
Okay.
for the accountant. Should be comfortable accepting a copy of this one.
Good, thank you. Okay, let's move along. The meeting minutes of June 12th, 2013 to be approved. In this particular meeting, we talked about the prior version of the gifts and grants acceptance policy. We talked about the 61A right of first refusal on the 2 parcels.
Does this include the changes I sent in this afternoon?
Okay. Okay. I had made some changes also. Thank you. No, Robin, you will not be
That's
approving
correct.
these. Thank you.
I move we approve the minutes of June 12th as submitted.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Our next agenda item, typically I ask the question, and very few times do we have citizens' comments. But, Harry, you had your hand up earlier?
Well, I was just responding to several things that were said this evening. The first one was relative to the gift policy. You used the words that the Board of Selectmen had the ability, when you were talking about controlling the expending of those funds. In fact, under Mass General laws, you have both the obligation and the authority.
Yes, I stand corrected what I said, but I...
Lacking your approval, the monies presumably fall back into the general fund.
I don't know that for a fact. I don't know that. I do not know that, where the funds fall if we do not approve that.
It would depend on the facts of the situation, but typically a gift is given for a particular purpose or as an unrestricted gift, so it would not revert to the general.
Well, no, the question would be, if it's a restricted gift and given under conditions, then yes. But the question then would be, would you accept such a restricted gift proposal? And that's always a question that you face in these circumstances. But again, it is not a question of ability, it's rather an obligation of authority.
Yes, thank you.
The second question I had was when you were discussing the Grace Church And I'm also in favor of the concept, so please don't read this the wrong way. The property is lacking the use of the current facility, a residential zoning. But under the Dover, so-called Dover Amendment, Master of Laws, of course, you cannot preclude the establishment of a house of worship, which is what it is. But neither of those uses is either an agricultural or a commercial use. So the question arises that if the Grace Church is charging for rental of space by these farmers, it's a commercial use. And while I'm personally not against it, it opens you up to the question of if an abutter were to complain, you understand the problem that could arise. It's not really a conforming use. And I don't believe that the Dover Amendment goes to that because it is outside the specific language of the statute.
Excellent question. I don't know the answer to that. Perhaps, Mr. Ramsey, you can follow up on that for the benefit of
Certainly
the-
can.
Thank you, that's an
And
excellent question.
third, just as a matter of information for Selectman Lisbon, the Conservation Commission has the authority to require all filers of letters of intent or other actions before the Conservation Commission for them to pay for engineering studies. I would gather that in this particular case, the Conservation Commission undertook work on their own.
Well, so according to Mr. Ramsey's answer, they may have the authority, but their practice is to do other than that.
Correct.
Right.
And particularly with respect to the regulations, that was their own work.
Right.
Well, I can tell you that they do require filers of letters of intent to pay for engineering costs.
Well, that's up to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah. Thank you, Terry. Okay. Good. At this point, our next agenda item is executive session, and may I be specific? I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining. Given that the discussion in open session, given that the discussion in open session may be detrimental to the bargaining position, the board will not be returning to open session. I would like to state that we're going into executive session. Okay, so the open session may be detrimental to the public body's bargaining position. Now, at this point, I'll poll my fellow selectmen to see if you agree to go into executive session. Carol?
Yes.
Good, we'll go into executive session. I'll then entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Good evening now.